Allen has the versatility. They move him up and down the line in their front. He plays with strength and effort, and it's rare where you see a defensive lineman collect 100 tackles in one season, which is what he did in 2017. The effort is phenomenal with Allen. I think this is a pretty good pick for him here in the third round. Steelers like receivers from the MAC, Rich.
Yes, they do, and it's interesting that Santonio Holmes introduces the newest wide receiver using the pick that they got in the Antonio Brown trade. And it's a wide receiver.
And they go get a wide receiver in Deontay Johnson, who's an outstanding returner, a trait that Kevin Colbert loves in his wide receivers. If you look at Juju Smith-Schuster, he returned some kicks. Antonio Brown returned kicks as well. This guy has a 98-yard touchdown where you can see that burst. He's 80-yard touchdown catch in one of the games that I watched. He only ran 4.53, but he plays much faster. You know who else ran in the 4.5s but played a little bit faster?
Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown.
From the MAC as well.
You need a creative offensive coordinator for Jalen Hurd because he can do a little bit of everything, a running back and a slot receiver. Remember, he was here at the University of Tennessee as a running back. He's very smooth and slithery as a runner. Let's go back to his time with the Volunteers. At 6'4" in the backfield,
Big.
He is so fluid and loose. See him here get into the corner, find your way into the end zone. Then he goes to Baylor, decides I want to play wide receiver, and pretty darn impressive for not having done it at that size. Good. You're going to be able to break the huddle with him, and the defense is not going to know where he's going to be. It's going to be a fun matchup for Kyle Shanahan there in that San Francisco offense.
And Joel, how many times did you see him actually take it as a tailback at Baylor as well, even though he left there because he left Tennessee to not be a tailback anymore?
That speaks to Daniel's point about the creativity with Kyle Shanahan. You can do whatever you want with him. This guy was one of the best high school football players from the state of Tennessee ever. 3,000 yards as a junior.
Ja'Kai Polite, defensive end.
Here comes Polite, and it's an easy sack.
A 2018 first-team All-SEC selection.
Well, if we would have had the draft right after the college football season, Ja'Kai Polite probably would have went in the first round. He's got a big-time get-off, a nasty spin move, but the offseason just killed his draft stock. He was a little bit out of shape. He just couldn't get things going in the interview process, and that caused him to slide. But his tape as an edge rusher is outstanding. The Jets are hoping that's a guy that's going to show up in New York. Oliver, very athletic tight end from San Jose State. Outstanding play speed. Ran in the 4.6s. Lots of quick hitters and screens. He's not a factor in the run game. That'll be something he definitely needs to prove on in this offense. But he's somebody that can get down the field. You see that speed stretching the seam on occasion, but a lot of times they just like to get the ball in his hands and let him run after the catch where he has that build-up speed. But again, the challenge for him in the run game, he's got a lot of work to do. Jones on that talented Ohio State defensive line. We saw Nick Bosa go already. We'll see another one go in the top 10 next year. He's versatile. He's got quick hands. The only frustrating thing, I never really saw the power from him. Joel, that was my concern when I watched him. I see the explosiveness, the quickness. I just want to see a little more strength and power.
Well, and part of it is Larry Johnson, their defensive line coach at Ohio State. He is about one thing and one thing only. Speed, get to the quarterback, and certainly Draymond Jones had that even from the interior. He was primarily a basketball player in high school until his last 2 seasons. I loved his production this last year. 13 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks. Finally reached that potential that we saw.
But he played it like a basketball player, right?
Yeah.
Slipping screens, splitting the zone, getting to the rim, and finishing.
Well, that makes sense. You think about where they were situated in the first round. Yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers leapfrogged them to get Devin Bush, so they had to find a linebacker in this draft, and Jermaine Pratt, he's an off-the-ball linebacker. The burst is a little bit average, but he plays with some thump. He's an outstanding blitzer, needs some work in coverage, but inside tackle to tackle, he's really good. And when you look at that division with the Baltimore Ravens, the way they love to run the football, he's going to be able to match up with that physical style inside. Also, the Cleveland Browns with their stable of backs and a pretty good offensive line, and they like to run it as well.
James Conner.
Jordan Howard. In comes David Montgomery. The vision is outstanding. He's so elusive inside the hole. I love his running style. He's my second overall running back. And Joel Klatt, this guy carried the Iowa State program the last couple years.
There's no doubt. That and a pretty good defense that they improved. Matt Campbell, their head coach, did a nice job, but really it was the engine that was David Montgomery, because he does everything. He's got vision in between the tackles, patience, he's got burst. He's a quality leader for Iowa State. Dual threat quarterback out of high school. And real quick, 2 years ago for Fox Sports, Mark Helfrich worked for us as a college football analyst on games. And I remember having a conversation with him. One of the guys he was most impressed with that year covering Iowa State was David Montgomery.
We've been waiting for this run on running backs, and we have it right now. Devin Singletary, the jump cuts, he is a fun runner to watch. He's like a mini LaShawn McCoy with his stop-start quickness. CD, you put on the tape, it's fun to watch, man.
It really is, and with the jump cuts and the quickness, you actually think he's faster than what he is.
Yeah.
Because he will time in the 4.6s, but that speed and quickness, Joel, and the ability to make people miss in the hole is what makes him special. The only concern you have, he carried it a lot at FAU, man. He touched it all the time. That's the only concern.
700 carries plus, but in 2017, Rich, 32 touchdowns.
Yep.
One season. It's an FBS record, folks.
So are you saying they have the mini LaShawn McCoy and
the real
Sean McCoy?
The real McCoy. But they end up getting Jay Sternberger, who's very fluid and instinctive. He can stretch the field. You're going to use him in the same way the Philadelphia Eagles use Zach Ertz. You can flex him out, and he's an outstanding route runner. Only 1 year there at Texas A&M. Coaches went there to recruit somebody else. They stumbled upon him. He goes to A&M for 1 year. He's ultra productive, and he's on to the NFL. He's got outstanding change of direction at the top of his route, that quickness, that suddenness. He's going to be a fun player in this offense.
And everything you see him do, flexed out or split wide. That's what he does best.
Well, you talk about some legit track speed. He has it. Outstanding character, and he's the best kick coverage player in the entire draft, and I think he's familiar with the quarterback there, Joel.
Yeah, I would say so. Obviously, playing with Dwayne Haskins, his speed obviously jumps off the tape, but it's his leadership, really, that I think stood out at Ohio State. When they were trying to develop young Dwayne Haskins, they needed someone to step up. This is early in the season. Watch this. 1, 2, 3. Nittany Lions hit the ground. Guess who was blocking them? That's Terry McLaurin right there, doing everything he can to get KJ Hill into the end zone. He sold out for the Buckeyes. His leadership was paramount in their success last year. And I'll also say this, the tie-in here is that Kevin O'Connell is the quarterback coach with the Washington Redskins. He was a special offensive assistant in 2016 with San Francisco when their quarterback coach was Ryan Day. And so there's a huge connection right now with Ohio State and Washington.
Rich, and he's the last member of my top 50 hanging out there. Shock and shed. He's got an explosive first step. The comp, not just because of the hair.
I was going to ask
It's Clay
you,
Matthews. It's not just a hair thing,
That's
Charles.
too easy. Low-hanging fruit.
He's got outstanding hands. Watch him get off the line of scrimmage. Going to hit the running back. He doesn't have the ball. That's fine. I'll go find out where the ball is located here. Working against Northwestern. Shows you some of that quickness. Remember, this kid ran 4.59. There's the hands. Get your hands. You get your hands on me, I'm going to knock them off and end up getting some pressure. Now you see working against Florida. This is Jajuan Taylor he's working against. Going to split him. End up getting a sack. Now physically he looks like a body double on Point Break. That's the kind of look that he's going for.
By the way,
but he is.
I just got to say this. I got to say this because they do know how to have a parade in New England. That guy is going to be first team all parade if they keep having him up there. Gronk's out. Winovich is in.
Played a lot of football at an offensive line factory. 54 starts. He's a mauler. He's got some work to do balance-wise. He'll duck and lunge a little bit too much there, Charles.
Yeah, but just think about where he's going now. How ideal is this? Because you talk about the football factory and his ability to plug at a few different places, but they have a screaming need inside at guard. Right now you got Isaac Asiata, you got Daniel Kilgore at center and Jesse Davis at right guard. He's got a chance to play from snap one when he gets to camp with the Miami Dolphins, and I think that he will. I know sometimes Joel becomes a cliche.
Yeah.
He's a Wisconsin lineman, and you like him. Sometimes we don't give him enough credit for being good football players. This one is.
And he's a great teammate. He's a captain. And, oh, by the way, they've got someone to protect now.
Oh, yeah, yes, a Big Ten run.
There you go. David Long, play outside. I think he's going to end up being a nickel inside. They lost LaMarcus Joyner in the offseason. I think that's where he could end up going.
I mean, this guy, he was in your face, man-to-man, almost the entire time he was at Michigan. Great ball skills. He understands route concepts. He understands how to fall off of routes. Even though he's in that man-to-man for Don Brown, their defensive coordinator, he can get a little aggressive at the top of routes and draw penalties with his hands. But he is uber aggressive, and he is a guy that will not shy away from that one-on-one, man-to-man coverage, in particular in the middle of the field.
Well, just put some boxing gloves on him in practice. We'll get rid of all that grabbiness, right? And as we well know, that transition from college to the pros to the 5-yard zone where you can't grab anymore. But one thing I learned about him in the offseason with the training sessions he was doing, you mentioned how good he is about route concepts and reading. Fantastic on the board. This is a guy I was told that understands what everyone's doing on his defense, how it fits together, and where he has his opportunities to gamble and make plays on the football because of how the defense is being run. So you can't beat that when you have a player that intelligent.
Taki, ultra productive. You can see it there on the screen. They move him around. He'll come off the edge. He'll even line up in the slot over wideouts and play underneath coverage. The effort is outstanding with this player. Speed, character, and leadership from that safety position. Just doesn't have a lot of ball production when you study him. He can play rolled up. He's got some real snap on contact. When he hits you, you'll feel it. He's got some real explosiveness. One of the games I watched against Purdue, he can get a little bit out of control. He misses a tackle, ends up being a long touchdown there. He plays a real reckless brand of football. You see the big hit there as a blitzer, but he does not slow down. It is all gas, no brakes, Joel.
yeah, when he gets going downhill like that. And what's been interesting is watching how Boston College has expanded to where there's defensive backs every year in the draft and multiples in this one. Will Harris being one of them, and going to Detroit. Glover Quinn occupied a lot of that space for a long time there. They need to start making those moves.
Harris, 41 starts. Experienced guy, highly competitive. Certainly fits that mantra that Peter was talking about. Competitive, great leader. It's a great culture pick there for the Lions.
Unique stance. He plays right tackle. He's got a frog stance, meaning he's got a towel hanging off his butt. It touches the ground. But he is a people mover. He's dominant in the run game, and he more than held his own at the Senior Bowl.
By the way,
watch him blocking the Volunteers right here, which is not too difficult.
Hey,
Well, you can see him pull around. He's going to kick inside. They announced him as a guard. He's going to play guard. There's that frog stance. That towel, again, I freeze frame it. The towel's scraping the ground when he gets down there in his stance. But he's a fun player. He's going to be a mauler. He'll fit right in the way they want to play football. A wide receiver, plays with excellent patience and poise. Had a great battle versus N'Keal Harry. N'Keal Harry ended up getting the big one on him, but he was competitive in that game, Joel.
He was, and you talk about he used to be a wide receiver. He was actually a 4-star wide receiver and played both as a true freshman before settling on corner. I think that this guy is a highly competitive, very sticky, comfortable, physical player. You got to be that if you're going to play for Mark D'Antonio on that defense, in particular into the boundary, which he was most of the time. A lot of short side field for Justin Lane, but this is the type of guy that understands how to cover.
And you know something? Know what his dad is? A huge Cleveland Browns fan. This is a tough one for him.
One of our favorites from the Senior Bowl. The suddenness and the range for a guy 324 pounds reminds me of Javon Hargrave, who's been outstanding with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And let's jump into some of the tape here. You can see just what he does. He's got extremely quick hands. And then you look at the leverage. This is Lindstrom, who went in the first round of the Atlanta Falcons. Watch him just jack him straight back into the quarterback. He's got tremendous pop and snap with his hands. Now, this is Bradbury, another first-round pick. Watch him stack and peek. He's looking around with his eyes, driving back, and then pulling down. It shows you some tremendous balance. Little inside rip move versus Dieter. We've seen him get drafted already. Now you get into the game, you get him on an island with a guard, little club swim, and he finishes. But this was the highlight of his Senior Bowl week, was after practice.
Oh, man.
Show me a little something. Mary Lou Saunders, nicely done.
And that was right after he found out he was a dad.
Absolutely. Went home for a day to be with his child.
No kidding.
Yeah, he got the phone call that his daughter had been born, did the backflip, celebrated with the team, got on a plane, flew home, and then came back for the game.
Pressure comes, and he is tripped up by guess who?
Jalen Ferguson, defensive end, the 2018 Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year.
All right, Jalen Ferguson, you don't get more productive than him. FBS leader with 45 career sacks. Size, length, and power. Doesn't have the elite athleticism, didn't test very well, but this is an outstanding football player on tape. You want production? Watch him shoot up the field here, win right away. He's outstanding with his hands, little hand technician, quick swipe, get home and finish. And now can you convert speed to power? That's exactly what he can do. He's going to put you right on the ground, and that leads to a sack. Ozzie Newsome always used to preach production in sacks, carries over to the NFL. He's no longer in charge. His protege, Eric DaCosta, is, but you can see the philosophy has maintained the same. Many times you draft a player with a big-time water polo background, but that's what you get with Kahale Waring. He's got ridiculous height, weight, speed combination, ran 4.67 CD. He's a work in progress, but the upside with this guy is what you're drafting.
Yeah, he is a work in progress, but it's pretty good work because, as you said, starting to really come along and improving, and really made a jump, I thought, this year. Being able to get upfield, run his routes, and look at it. Find that open space, but watch what happens afterwards. Look at him slip the block there to gain the extra yardage. Finds a way to get himself open and understands where the end zone is, Joel.
And this guy is so young when you're talking about football. He played not just water polo, everything except for football. And so I think that his upside is tremendous right now with the athleticism that he shows.
So go get the starting running back at Alabama, Damien Harris. We saw Josh Jacobs go in the first round, but Harris is the one who started and had all the production. He's outstanding in pass protection, which you know is going to be a big deal for the New England Patriots. Watch his quick little jump cut as an inside runner, sneak out the back door, get a big chunk play. He runs through arm tackles. He's strong and powerful. You can see it the way he's built in his lower half. You're not going to be able to pull him down. He'll run right through those. He's not as active as Jacobs in the passing game, but he catches everything. Very reliable hands. And this is what I mentioned I love about him. In pass protection, he's outstanding. He's very square. He's aware, and he gets the job done. You also see him even used a little bit as a lead blocker in some of the run game. We saw the same thing from Josh Jacobs. The New England Patriots, they become a physical team. They got another physical runner. And a little bit of these linebackers start to come off the board today. Look at the size, 6'2.5", 237 pounds. Plays outside linebacker. They use him to cover the tight end. He'll also line up stacked inside. One of the things I like when I'm watching linebackers, I like guys that are directing traffic. You start at the beginning of the play. He's the communicator for this defense. He's the one that gets everything going. He's got a short area burst that you love. As a pass rusher, he just doesn't have a plan right now. That's something they're going to have to work with him on.
Well, we saw already Marquise Blair. He got selected. That middle of the Utah defense has always been stout for Kyle Whittingham, their head coach. This is a guy that can be all over the field, highly productive linebacker.
Aren't they a big Utah family, too, the Martin family?
No question, absolutely.
Everyone, you all pros they drafted last year. Darius Leonard is Bobby Okeriki's the exact same body type, 6'1", 239 pounds, very, very long arms. He ran in the 4.5s. He's got tremendous range and speed. Now, he's not the same player that Darius Leonard was, but Chris Ballard is about speed on defense. It is power up front on offense, and he wants his linebackers to be able to fly all over the field. Joel, I know you called a bunch of those Stanford games over the years.
I did, and listen, he was a glue piece to that defense and very smart. Charles, you know, you've been there. Those Stanford guys, they take more pride in the schematics of the game than they even do with their athleticism, even though he's a very athletic player.
The home of intellectual brutality.
There it is.
As they like to call it. And the interesting part is, Daniel, you talked about Leonard last year. Outside guy. Okereke, even with the same body type, much more of an inside guy.
Yeah, Connor Mcgovern was my highest rated interior lineman still on the board. He will uproot you, drive you, and finish you in the run game. He's played a lot of football. He's very smart and aware in pass protection and has that flexibility to play any of the three inside spots, center or guard. The biggest thing about him is he can anchor down in pass protection, and then when you want to get some movement in the run game, which we know the Dallas Cowboys love to do, he can get that done as well. A very physical player, but I think that versatility, the guard center flex CD, is what the Cowboys love about him.
It's huge for them because you remember last year they drafted a left tackle out of Texas that they moved inside the guard at Leonard Williams, but he still needs to add some heft and some strength. Played better the second half of the year, and anytime they had injuries, remember last year they lost their center Frederick, a lot of switching and moving. Mcgovern can help solidify things and be a swing guy inside.
34, his last 34 games he started, and there's a reason why Miles Sanders and Saquon Barkley were so effective. Obviously, Barkley was just a transcendent talent, but a lot of it was the fact that Mcgovern and a lot of those offensive linemen were so great up front.
Notre Dame, then they go Delaware, and now they go Sioux Falls. This is a player at the East-West Shrine game that showed up and was outstanding. That's when the scouts began to fall in love with him and see the upside that he had. He lines up at left tackle. The games I watched were Upper Iowa and St. Cloud. I'm sure everybody at home spends a lot of time on Saturdays dialed in to those football programs. But when you're watching somebody against inferior competition, you want them to dominate, and that's exactly what this kid did. Very athletic. Going to need a little bit of time, a little bit of work, but it's a great project, and the Chargers have an outstanding offensive line coach. This will be a fun project for him. He's got rare foot quickness. He's undersized at 6'3.5" for a tackle, but I think he's got a chance to stick there. And the interesting comparison is Kelvin Beecham. He's somebody that can play underneath you with leverage. He's very athletic. They'll use him on a lot of pulls and get him out in space. And you can see he's played the right side. He's played a little bit on the left side. He had a great Senior Bowl week, the most consistent week of practice there of any tackle, and just had been up and down early in his career. They were very frustrating to watch him because the talent has always been there as a big-time recruit coming out of high school.
He was the top guard in the country coming out. He was a 5-star player, and it was always a lack of interest. You know, when he wanted to be, he was a great player. The talent is absolutely there, but then there would be some things that would get in the way. He shoved an official and was ejected from a game. He was, removed from the team for a time and suspended, but then he comes back. We'll see what type of player he is for the Jets.
Leonard Williams will get his attention.
House Boykin, who's big and fast. They play him inside, outside. He walls off and high points the football, and he's somebody, Joel, that as the season ended, his stock went through the roof.
Yeah, I mean, started just one season, but 52 catches. He was 4.42 in the 40. He can eat up space. I thought that was his best quality. Charles, that defensive back, he stepped on his toes right away.
Yeah, that was beautiful to see, because if you eat that up and have that defensive back aware of that all the time, now when you do run that short route and he's bailing out of there, you make that catch, use that size and physicality, and run over him after the catch.
All right, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who we haven't heard from in quite some time. It's time to get them on the clock right here, get their pick. And then come the Giants, we haven't heard from since they traded up into the end of last night's first round.
Giants, they get an edge rusher a little bit later than people thought, destroys tight ends. He'll widen and bull rush you. He's played a lot of football, 48 starts there. You see the size at 6'3", 250. He loves a little slap swim move. That is his go-to. He'll rush you out of a 2-point stance or 3-point stance. Not a great bender at the top of his rush, but I know one thing. When he lines up over tight end, CD, he gets after him.
And think about his body type, and who do you think of that would play for the Giants? Osa Umenyiora, right? A little JPP earlier in his career. Body type, maybe not as explosive as them.
Rich, 33 career sacks. Highly productive player.
You like it?
I do.
Okay.
48 career starts.
Things are looking up for the
Ended
Giants.
up getting the defensive lineman. Dawson Knoxo tight end, inline flexed out. He's an easy mover, very athletic, limited production. And CD, when I say limited production,
0 touchdown catches in his career at Ole Miss because A.J. Brown,
DK Metcalf, DeMarcus
Lodge, who may go later today or tomorrow. I mean, that's what you get. But this kid is a great combo tight end from right here in Nashville. He may be getting in the car right now and rolling down here for his moment.
Here's why I love him. Close to my heart. Walked on at Ole Miss. He was a no-star quarterback coming out of high school, and he works himself into the point where he is a draft pick as a tight end after not catching a touchdown pass in his college career. I love that type of work ethic. That mentality is going to serve him well.
He's a willing blocker, too.
Yeah.
athletic dude. His high school teammates of Kyler Murray, both of his tackles, Greg Little and Bobby Evans, have already been drafted. That was one heck of a high school football team.
Well, they were 43-0.
Yeah, pretty good. But he's somebody that the more I watched him, I started to grow on me a little bit. The balance is not great, but he gets movement at the point of attack. He's a little bit of a one-track guy going to the second level, meaning if he stays on his original path, he's fine. He struggles a little bit to adjust, Joel.
he was in a huge spot this year. He had to replace Orlando Brown at the left tackle spot, and he moved over there, played in that two-point stance, and I thought he did a really nice job because, trust me when I tell you, those Oklahoma fans knew exactly what they were trying to replace at the left tackle position, and they knew who was trying to do it. And Bobby Evans, he sat in there and did a really nice job. I thought he was sticky at the second level. Maybe not a great, powerful blocker down there at the second level, but very sticky. And in that run game, boys, he can pull and do a nice job athletically.
Here we are in the bottom of the third round. I did 400 guys, CD. 400 players I worked on. Quincy was not one of the guys that I did.
We saw him at the NFLPA game.
That's right.
Out in Pasadena. And what he did that week in practice, and it was a really disjointed week in practice. You have to understand that.
Remember how much it rained that week.
And they were trying to find places to practice. Yep. One day really got wiped out of just ballroom stuff. But every guy I talked to that talked about this kid talked about speed and suddenness to the football. And that's what he brings to the table. So if you're talking about him going to Jacksonville, which already added someone like that unexpected in Josh Allen, but now he'll play back more of an inside guy to get to the football.
Will Grier, when you look at him, he's a rhythm thrower, excellent touch. He does not have a huge arm, but he is on time and he's accurate with the football. So to me, when you watch him, you watch a game like the Texas game, you fall in love with him. You watch the Iowa State game, you go, okay, he's got some room to grow. But he's somebody, some teams had this kid way up there, others weren't so high. But Carolina Panthers, Joel, this is a team with Cam Newton coming off of an injury, getting to the end of his contract. This is an interesting pick for the Carolina
Panthers. It's a
Panthers.
very interesting pick because I think this guy can be a starter in the league, maybe in the near future. Listen, when he's in rhythm, he's as good of a deep ball thrower that we had in college football. Look at these, just beautiful, in stride, down the field, time after time for Dana Holgerson's offense. He had David Sills on the outside. He had some weapons out there, there's no doubt. Here's the deal. I think the first tape you watched of him was Iowa State, so you had one thought of him. The game I did in the booth was Texas. He was brilliant against Texas, so I kind of fell in love with Will Grier, his whole deal. Listen, he's a mature guy. He dealt with some things back in Florida, had to transfer to West Virginia, but I like this pick a lot.
And you remember Taylor Heinicke was the backup last year for Carolina. He'll go in and battle with him right away to take that second spot behind Cam Newton.
There's no 40 on him in the spring because he's coming off of an injury. Played the left tackle. He's got strong hands. I think he's going to be a right tackle at the next level. He's on the ground a little bit too much for my taste, but somebody that's got the ideal size and frame for the position, needs to get healthy and needs to continue to grow and improve.
You know what I always find interesting, guys, about West Virginia offensive linemen? You think they're all going to be totally finessed because of the style of offense and pass protectors? Quentin Spain, Mark Glowinski, those guys were people that move people off of the ball, and Kajust is one of those types of guys as well, even in pass protection.
His first year of football was his senior year of high school, so he's another guy, late bloomer, new to the game.
Everything's downhill. He's a slithery style to him. They'll also put him out in the slot. They'll use him on some of those fly sweeps. I thought he caught the ball pretty well. When he had the opportunities, you can see him catch balls outside his frame. The thing he needs to work on is, Joel, he's got to get better in pass protection.
Yeah.
That's the area he's got to improve.
There's no doubt. But you mentioned all those Boise running backs, right? He's the first one to lead the Mountain West Conference in rushing. 1,400 yards, so highly productive guy. He can give a little wiggle as well.
And that tape you saw against Fresno State in the Mountain West Championship game, 200 yards rushing. He put it on him in that one and got better as the game went on.